I can't tell you how much I sympathize with the way everybody has had to endure this unbelievably testing and challenging time.
A series of unauthorized, high-stakes shadow diplomacy maneuvers by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in the Middle East that have left the British Foreign Office in a state of acute geopolitical crisis. The shockwaves began when the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were spotted at the Jordan-Gaza border, executing a mission that was never sanctioned by King Charles III or the UK government. While the British Parliament and the entire Commonwealth have maintained a strictly calibrated neutrality regarding the current regional tensions, Harry and Meghan, acting as private citizens, have blatantly broken ranks. By inserting themselves into one of the top three biggest geopolitical crises of the 21st century, the Sussexes have not just embarrassed the crown, they have actively jeopardized the United Kingdom's delicate diplomatic standing. Reports indicate that the couple bypassed official British embassy channels in Amman, opting instead to coordinate with international entities whose agendas frequently clash with the official UK stance. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, has emerged as the chief architect of the Crown's scorched earth response, discarding all diplomatic protocol during a closed-door briefing at St. James's Palace. Her voice, hardened by decades of stoic service, left no room for interpretation. The only way for them to ascend to any semblance of royal authority is if the House of Windsor is reduced to just two people, Harry and the disgraced Andrew. Anne's fury is not merely personal, it is institutional. Sources close to the Princess Royal confirm that she views the couple's arrival in Jordan as a malicious attempt to destabilize the king's reign at a time when His Majesty is still carefully managing his recovery. She has reportedly labeled their rhetoric as the most thoughtless, infantile, and dangerous sentiment ever projected by someone claiming a royal background. While Anne provides the vocal fire, Thonvung William is operating with the cold precision of a future king. Following an emergency meeting this morning, with representatives from the Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office, FCDO, William has signaled a total severance policy. The Prince of Wales is no longer interested in building bridges. He has reportedly authorized a correction era within the palace, moving to ensure that the Sussex branch is permanently excommunicated from the moral and constitutional authority of the monarchy. The message from the Wales household is silent but lethal. The era of the freelance royal is over. The tension is exacerbated by the glaring optics of the Sussexes' trip. While claiming to be on a humanitarian mission to liberate funding, the couple was reported to be staying in a $3,000 a night suite at the St. Regis, all while their own Archewell Foundation reserves are rumored to be hovering near insolvency. This juxtaposition has fueled public rage in the UK, where taxpayers and government officials alike are tired of cleaning up the diplomatic debris left by the couple's monetization of optics. In London, the pressure on the royal family to act is at an all-time high. The British public, the press, and even high-ranking political bloggers are demanding more than just silence. They are demanding a final dissolution. As the fallout from the unauthorized Jordan-Gaza shadow diplomacy mission intensifies, the focus of the palace's era of correction has shifted to a far more localized and insidious threat. In a development that has sent tremors through the British establishment, the Royal Disciplinary Tribunal confirmed today that the Sussex-York Axis, a clandestine alliance, long suspected by intelligence agencies, has been systematically dismantled. The final nail in this coffin was the dramatic arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former Duke of York, whose fall from grace now serves as a grim template for the future of the Sussex brand. The arrest of Andrew occurred in the early hours of March 6 at a private residence in Berkshire. Executed with clinical silence by the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Crime Command, the operation marked the definitive end of Andrew's proximity to power. Once considered the spare of his own generation, his descent into legal catastrophe has provided the Crown with the necessary constitutional leverage to finally categorize non-serving royals as existential threats rather than mere family embarrassments. The charges, which remain under a strict reporting restriction for national security reasons, are linked to a sophisticated network of gray money facilitation and the unauthorized usage of sovereign assets to fund private geopolitical interests. Palace insiders describe the arrest as the final amputation required to save the institution. Princess Anne, in her recent address, pointedly noted that the proximity of Andrew's legal crisis to the Sussexes' Middle Eastern stunt is not a coincidence, but a lesson. She stated that the institution does not protect those who treat the crown as a commercial franchise, and that Andrew's fate is the logical conclusion of the path Harry has chosen. The tribunal revealed that Andrew was not acting alone. Evidence presented to the court suggests that Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, acted as the primary bridge between Andrew's commercial network and the Sussex's global ambitions. Forensic audits, now colloquially known as the Nightingale dossier, have mapped a staggering 3 million pages of data, exposing how the two households shared sensitive institutional intelligence between 2022 and 2026. The dossier highlights an intelligence pipeline consisting of at least 17 high-level private meetings between Meghan Markle and the Duchess of York. These meetings were reportedly used to share confidential royal security protocols and property layouts, potentially compromising the safety of the King and the Prince of Wales. Furthermore, the tribunal produced 42 WhatsApp threads, revealing a coordinated effort to trademark commercial phrases incorporating Windsor and royal derivatives for the Sussexes as Ever brand, a direct violation of the sovereign assets. Act 2025. Investigators also identified a grey money trail involving £2.7 million in unexplained payments from U.S.-based entities to accounts managed by York affiliates, funds that allegedly lubricated the Sussexes' high-profile media and political appearances. The final blow to the Sussex-York axis came from within. The defection of Princess Eugenie, who provided the tribunal with full and frank testimony regarding the Sussexes' intentions to monetize the monarchy from the outside, has effectively isolated Harry and Meghan. Eugenie's move to secure sovereign protection for her own family in exchange for exposing the collusion has left the Sussexes without their most vital inside informant. Without the protective layer provided by the York household, the Sussexes now stand exposed as private citizens attempting to play in the deep waters of international geopolitics. The news of Andrew's arrest and the Sussexes' involvement in these grey money schemes has caused a tidal wave of fury across the UK. Members of Parliament are now calling for a full parliamentary inquiry into the Sussex-York network, arguing that the duo's actions are a breach of national security. Public sentiment has reached a boiling point, with protests outside Buckingham Palace featuring banners reading "Strip the titles" and "No more royal shadows." The simultaneous nature of Andrew's arrest and the crackdown on the Sussexes is part of the Fortress Windsor architecture, a strategy spearheaded by Prince William to redefine the monarchy. The message is clear. The Axis is dead, Andrew is in a cell, and the doors of the palace are being welded shut. The Sussexes are no longer fighting for a seat at the table. They are fighting for their very existence in a world that has officially moved on. While the internal purge of the York-Sussex axis occupies the legal minds at Buckingham Palace, a far more dangerous fire is raging on the international stage. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's unauthorized humanitarian theater in the Middle East has officially crossed the line from a public relations nuisance to a high-level security threat. The British Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, entered a state of maximum alert this morning, following a blistering official statement from Israeli leadership that has effectively branded the Duke of Sussex a diplomatic liability. The silence from the Middle East was broken at 9 a.m. local time, when Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell delivered a direct, unprecedented rebuke that sent shockwaves through Whitehall. The message was aimed squarely at the Sussexes' residence in Montecito. Prince Harry, with all due respect, before using your global platform to level accusations against Israel, I would suggest a very simple step. Come and see for yourself. Haskell's rebuke stems from Harry's rhetoric during a high-profile press conference in Amman, where he demanded the urgent opening of aid corridors and implied that Israel was systematically blocking life-saving supplies. The Israeli government didn't just disagree. They provided a humiliating fact-check. Haskell pointedly invited Harry to speak with the British general serving at the Coordination and Liaison Center, the very British representative overseeing the movement of goods, who would confirm that thousands of trucks are entering daily. By peddling narratives that contradict official military and WHO data, Harry has inadvertently turned the British crown into a target for political blowback. The timing of this crisis is catastrophic. Today, March 9, marks Commonwealth Day, a moment intended for unified celebration. Instead, the Sussex fiasco has sabotaged months of careful negotiation, led by King Charles III to maintain a balanced UK position. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has spent the last week emphasizing that the UK's military role remains strictly defensive, specifically avoiding offensive strikes to protect British lives in the region. Harry's side-taking has effectively shredded this carefully maintained veil of neutrality. The Foreign Office panic is palpable. British diplomats have been forced to issue emergency disclaimers to regional powers, clarifying that the Duke of Sussex possesses zero mandate from the British state. Defense experts at the Ministry of Defense have warned that Harry's inflammatory comments endanger British military assets currently stationed in Cyprus and Qatar. By cosplaying as a royal representative, Harry has blurred the lines of UK policy, potentially inviting retaliation against official British personnel. The primary weapon being used against the Sussexes is the truth. Harry's claim that aid corridors were effectively closed was systematically dismantled by the very organization he claimed to be supporting. While Harry used his Archewell Foundation's donation to the World Health Organization as a shield for his political posturing, the WHO's own official reports indicate that humanitarian saturation for basic needs is being aggressively pursued through established channels Harry accused of being non-existent. This fact-check gap has exposed what political analysts call performative humanitarianism. Critics argue that the Sussexes sacrifice diplomatic truth to gain a soundbite that emphasizes their own importance. The Palestinian ambassador to the Ivory Coast even accused the couple of using sick children as props for their own branding, a sentiment that has gained traction across international media. The reaction within the UK has been one of visceral disgust. As the news of the Israeli rebuke reached London, the pressure on the monarchy to take final, decisive action reached a breaking point. Members of Parliament, an emergency debate has been scheduled in the House of Commons. MPs are calling for the immediate passage of the Succession to the Crown Amendment Bill 2026 to remove Harry's name from the line of succession entirely. The British press, broadsheets across the spectrum, have labeled the trip the most dangerous amateurism in a century. The public, YouGov polls taken this morning show that 82% of the British public favor the total removal of all royal status and titles to prevent further Mao Dan impersonation of the state. In London, Princess Anne and Prince William have remained in constant contact with the Prime Minister. The era of discipline has now moved into its operational phase. The palace has authorized the FCDO to cooperate fully with international allies to contain the Sussexes' movements. The message from the Fortress Windsor architecture is clear. If you use the crown as a weapon of personal or political vengeance, the crown will treat you as an existential threat. Harry and Meghan are no longer just failed royals in Hollywood. They are now considered rogue actors on the global stage. As the legal guillotine of the 2026 dissolution decree looms, the Sussexes are discovering that their shadow diplomacy has not given them power. It has only ensured their total, irreversible isolation. While the Sussex-York axis crumbles under the weight of Crown investigations in London, the ground beneath Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's feet in California has officially given way. The Hollywood exodus, a long-simmering withdrawal of elite support, has reached a terminal phase following the disastrous Middle Eastern shadow diplomacy trip. The most devastating blow, however, came not from a government official, but from the woman who once provided the platform for their most explosive allegations, Oprah Winfrey. In a move that has stunned the entertainment industry, sources close to Oprah Winfrey report that the media mogul has formally distanced herself from the couple, citing a fundamental mismatch in values. According to insiders at Harpo Productions, Winfrey was reportedly appalled by the Sussexes' decision to use a humanitarian tragedy in the Middle East as a backdrop for a pseudo-royal tour designed to bolster their personal branding. The critique focuses on what has been labeled as dirty tactics, the deliberate use of misleading narratives to solicit funding. In a private briefing that has since leaked to major Hollywood bloggers, Winfrey allegedly questioned the unverifiable and dangerous claims Harry made regarding Gaza's aid corridors, claims that have been systematically dismantled by both Israel and the WHO. For Winfrey, who prides herself on authenticity, the Sussexes' performative humanitarianism has become a liability too heavy for her own brand to carry. The psychological toll of Hollywood's rejection is compounded by a mounting financial crisis. The Nightingale dossier, while primarily a legal tool for the Royal Tribunal, has leaked staggering details of the couple's insolvency to financial regulators in the US and UK. the Montecito default. Reports indicate that the couple's primary residence in California is in material default, with an annual maintenance and security cost exceeding $4 million, and their main revenue streams, including the landmark Netflix deal, either terminated or downgraded to first look status. The math no longer works. The luxury paradox. Public rage has reached a fever pitch following reports that the couple stayed in $3,000 a night suites during their humanitarian trip to Jordan. This extravagance stands in stark contrast to the Archewell Foundation's recent filings, which show a $2.5 million loss and a 90% drop in donations since 2021. The Tyler Perry debt. Rumors are circulating among Hollywood elite that the couple still owes significant security and logistical fees to Tyler Perry for their initial transition to the U.S. debts they are reportedly unable to settle as their liquid assets evaporate. Meghan's attempt to pivot to her as-ever lifestyle brand in Australia, notably skipping the UK, has been met with derision. Industry experts at Brand Finance have categorized the brand as commercially toxic. Without the royal warrant of approval, and with the shadow diplomacy scandal fresh in the public mind, high-end retailers have reportedly pulled out of distribution talks. The social fallout is equally brutal. At recent elite gatherings, including the post-BAFTA and Oscar circuits, the Sussexes have been conspicuously absent from guest lists. Once the power couple of Montecito, they are now being mocked as disaster tourists and ambulance chasers by former peers. The sentiment in Hollywood has undergone a seismic change. The narrative of the oppressed royals has been replaced by the reality of opportunistic amateurs who have played with matches in a geopolitical gas chamber. The Sussexes' defensive reaction, blaming institutional rot and palace leaks for their current crisis, has only fueled the fire. Their refusal to acknowledge the gravity of their diplomatic blunders has led to them being branded as delusional by high-ranking political bloggers. Harry and Meghan are no longer seen as revolutionaries. They are seen as the laughingstock of a town that has no patience for those who lose their influence. As they remain hunkered down in Montecito, the message from the Hollywood establishment is clear. The cameras are still clicking, but the world is no longer laughing with them. It is laughing at them. There is no longer a path back to the global A-list, only a downward spiral into a financial and reputational abyss. Inside the fortified walls of Clarence House, the air is thick with the weight of an era coming to a violent end. King Charles III, having long navigated the turbulent waters of a modern monarchy, is now facing the most profound personal and political crisis of his reign. With Prince Andrew in police custody and the Sussexes' shadow diplomacy causing a diplomatic emergency in the Middle East, the king has signaled to his inner circle that the time for grace and favor has officially expired. At 2 p.m. today, coinciding with the official Commonwealth Day events, the Royal Dissolution Tribunal convened in a secure, subterranean wing of St. James's Palace. This high-level council, comprising senior members of the House of Lords, constitutional legal experts, and the Lord Chamberlain, has been granted a historic mandate to finalize the legal framework for the complete dissolution of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's remaining constitutional ties to the British state. The proceedings are being held under the strictest security protocols in living memory, colloquially known as the Iron Scepter Protocol. The objective is to produce the Dissolution Decree, a document that, once signed by the king, will officially strip Prince Harry of his remaining titles, his position as a Counselor of State, and remove the couple from any and all remaining royal patronage roles. Palace sources describe King Charles as physically and emotionally exhausted by the relentless betrayal. For years, the king attempted to bridge the gap, hoping that time and space would lead to a rapprochement. That hope was systematically incinerated by Harry's $100 million nuclear lawsuit and the reckless Middle Eastern gambit that has placed British lives at risk. The king is not just grieving for his son, says a senior aide close to the sovereign. He is grieving for the institution he has sworn to protect. He has reached a point where he realizes that the survival of the crown is fundamentally incompatible with the continued participation of the Sussexes in the royal narrative. When you stop loving a threat, you start simply managing it. The tribunal's work is fueled by the massive 3 million-page Nightingale dossier. This forensic audit has provided the Crown with a smoking gun regarding the Sussexes' long-term plan to establish a competing royal presence in the United States. Beyond the Jordan incident, the dossier outlines systemic security leaks, a detailed analysis showing that since 2020, Over 80% of the sensitive data leaked about palace operations can be traced back to devices connected to Sussex-affiliated IP addresses. The shadow monarchy strategy. Evidence of a multi-year project to trademark terminology intended to confuse public perception between the actual sovereign and the Sussex brand. The York-Sussex coordination. Concrete proof that Harry and Meghan were active participants in the York-Sussex axis, attempting to leverage their mutual status to negotiate a re-entry on their own terms. While the tribunal deliberates, the UK government is moving in lockstep with the Crown. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has signaled that the succession to the Crown Amendment Bill 2026 is no longer just a proposal, it is a legislative weapon. By codifying strict residency and duty requirements, the bill effectively removes any legal ambiguity regarding Harry's position. If you do not reside in the UK and do not serve the Crown, you do not exist in the line of succession. As the King prepares to address the Commonwealth today, his message, though focused on unity, is underscored by a new, unwavering rigidity. The time for private discussions has been superseded by the requirements of the state. The dissolution is not a punishment, it is an inevitability of a branch that has chosen to grow away from the tree. The era of discipline has begun, and the dissolution decree is the instrument through which the King will finally secure the future of the House of Windsor. As the sun sets over Westminster on this historic Commonwealth Day, the House of Windsor has undergone a fundamental transformation. The events of the past 72 hours, culminating in the Royal Dissolution Tribunal's final findings, have not merely been a series of legal filings or diplomatic skirmishes, they have been an institutional exorcism. By confronting the wreckage left by the Sussex-York axis and the dangerous instability of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's shadow diplomacy, the monarchy has successfully pivoted from a model of permissive indulgence to a new, unwavering era of discipline. The Royal Dissolution Tribunal has delivered its verdict to the King. The Sussex's actions in Jordan and Gaza constitute a fundamental and irreparable breach of the sovereign covenant. This is no longer a matter of family discord. It is a constitutional determination. By leveraging royal status for independent political posturing and commercial gain, the Duke and Duchess have rendered their remaining institutional links incompatible with the security and neutrality of the British state. The dissolution decree, now awaiting the King's final signature following his return from the Commonwealth service at Westminster Abbey, will serve as the legal instrument of excommunication. It codifies the reality that one cannot simultaneously reject the responsibilities of the Crown while invoicing the state for the cost of maintaining one's own vanity projects. Under the leadership of Prince William and Princess Anne, the monarchy has established a new Fortress Windsor architecture designed to insulate the Crown from future rogue actors. This era is defined by three non-negotiable pillars. The codification of duty. Future royal status is now strictly tied to the succession to the Crown Amendment Bill 2026. This legislation removes the human element from the decision-making process. If a member does not reside in the UK and does not perform official duties, they are legally non-existent in the line of succession. Institutional amputation. The palace has made it clear that access to royal venues, protocol, and security is now strictly tied to fiscal transparency. Any individual not officially representing the sovereign is treated as a private citizen, barred from utilizing royal-linked communication channels. The sovereign's privacy. Communication from the palace will henceforth be limited to official state announcements. By refusing to respond to every tabloid grievance or Montecito-based provocation, the Iron Scepter strategy has effectively starved the Sussex media machine of the oxygen it requires to remain relevant. The humanitarian cosplay at the Gaza border served as the final, brutal lesson for the British public. The international fallout, the embarrassment of the Foreign Office, and the realization that the Sussex's rhetoric was fundamentally detached from factual reality have inoculated the nation against their influence. Public sentiment has hardened into a cold indifference. The Sussex brand is no longer a source of fascination. It is viewed as a toxic liability that the country has officially outgrown. Even within the Commonwealth, the message of unlocking opportunities together, delivered by the King today, stood in stark contrast to the divisive shadow diplomacy of his younger son. Leaders across the 56 nations have signaled their support for the Crown's newfound rigidity, recognizing that a stable, disciplined monarchy is a better partner than a chaotic freelance alternative. Princess Anne, the silent architect of this transition, offered the final summation in a closed-door briefing as the tribunal concluded. The crown is not a commodity, and it is certainly not a vehicle for the grievances of the restless. We are a lineage of duty. Those who have forgotten that lesson have effectively written themselves out of our history. As the lights dim on Buckingham Palace tonight, the message to Harry and Meghan is one of absolute finality. The Axis is dead. Andrew is in custody. And the doors of the palace are not just closed, they are being welded shut. The drama that has plagued the House of Windsor for 6 years has ended. The Sussexes are no longer fighting for their seat at the table. They are fighting for their relevance in a world that has officially moved on. The work of the Crown, quiet, stoic, and disciplined, continues.